You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
You've got 2 fights on the Fight Pass, 4 fights on Fox Sports 1, and the main card, of course, Fox Sports 1. TSN will have it.
Can I just be honest and call this a one-fight card? Honestly, do you care about anything on this card other than Silva versus Mir? Let's not bullshit our listeners.
There's 1, 2, 3 fights not on the main event that I give 2 craps about.
Okay, I want to know what those 3 are. Fess up, who are they and why?
The women's bantamweight fight, the main event of the prelims.
Alright, I give you that one. I suppose that's a good fight.
Smiling Sam Alvey against Cesar Ferreira.
Okay, yeah, Cesar Mutanch, I like him, and Sam Alvey, he has a good gimmick.
Michael Johnson, Edson Barbosa.
Yeah, just to see Barbosa kick the leg out of his leg, I'd watch that fight.
There you go, I made my point.
Alright, okay. 3 fights other than the main event, but it's still really a one-fight card.
So it's I just proved it's a 4-fight card, you're still calling it 1-fight card.
Okay, I understand you made a point that me as a hardcore fan, I can appreciate several of these other fights. That you and I are hardcore. We do an MMA sports radio show 51 out of 52 weeks a year. We care about this shit. To the casual fan, the only 2 names they're gonna know are Bigfoot and Frank Mir. Because both of those guys have been big-time heavyweights in big-time cards.
The women's bantamweight fight, I'm really interested in seeing that one because I wonder how the crowd's gonna react to this one. I think they're gonna be not insane, but it's gonna be a very excited crowd the whole show, I think.
Expand upon that. What makes you think that the crowd in Brazil, in Porto Alegre, is going to care so much about this fight? Is it because they don't see a lot of women's MMA? Is that what you're trying to say, or what?
I think they'd be excited for the women's MMA fight. I really think they will.
Just because it's women is your point here, not because it's Jessica Andrade and she'd be like the hometown hero, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a hometown hero, but it's basically, I think, one of those fights where they're circling it, you know, see the hometown girl in a feature fight, I guess you could say, really. Mm-hmm. And you saying it's not a hotbed for women's MMA in that, I guess, province of Brazil or city in Brazil, but maybe I thought Brazil had a booming MMA scene.
Oh, they do.
Like a women's MMA scene, I should say.
I don't know if I'd say it's booming. I mean, they got a booming scene as a whole, so the rising tide lifts all ships. But I mean, I would say on a per capita basis, there are probably a lot more women in the U.S. and Canada doing MMA than Brazil, because look at the tops of the weight classes in UFC, and that pretty much tells you what you need to know.
So it's just sad that Andrade doesn't have, you know, the same hype behind her that other fighters have. Like she needs to have a big
okay, well,
she needs to be higher on the card. I think I should say.
All right, well, seriously though, yeah, she's won 3 fights in a row, but it's not like she beat the cream of the crop. She beat Larissa Pacheco. I mean, okay, who's that? Can't even tell you. She beat Rosie Sexton, name I'm pretty vaguely familiar with, but, you know, she's also not a sterling fighter herself. She's lost her last 3 in a row. So the only really notable name, and this is because of Ultimate Fighter, that Jessica Andrade has beat is Raquel Pennington.
But she's also fought and lost against Liz Carmouche, who is one of the bigger names in her division.
Right, and got knocked the hell out in that fight with Liz Carmouche. So you're kind of making my argument that Andrade is not elite. I mean, Andrade is ranked where she is for a reason. She's number 10 because she hasn't beat anybody that's above her.
Do you think a win here puts her up in the rankings, or does she stay pat at number 10?
Okay, this is, again, you're making my point for me. She's fighting Marion Renault. That's like, who? No offense to Marion Renault, but that's not somebody that's even in the UFC rankings. That's not going to help Andrade. That's not making her case. You want to know how Andrade gets up into the upper echelons? You want to know how she does it? She beats Jessica I. Give her an opponent like that. That's somebody that she has to beat to move up.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I would that's a fight I would get excited about. I can't get excited about a fight that I think Andrade is going to win automatically because one, she's the hometown girl, and two, she's fighting a scrub. I'd be more excited about that if she was fighting a bigger name fighter.
Renault did beat Alexis Defren's UFC 182, Jones Cormier. You know, that was her only UFC fight, so she's 1-0 in the UFC, but that was a decision unanimous. You know, I just don't like taking fights lightly. I think this is a good one, but Andrade versus Evil Eye, that'd be a good fight down the road for her, you know. So
yeah, I just don't think that a win over Alexis Dufresne defines Marion Renault as somebody to look out for.
all right, what about Ferrari and Alvi? Ferreira and Alvi.
Well, I've already said that I'm a fan of this fight for the two reasons that I've outlined. Is Alvi is a guy that's got a great gimmick. He smiles his way through everything. Whether you love it or hate it, he's known for it. It's kind of fun to watch. And Cesar Mutanch is a very dangerous fighter from the Ultimate Fighter Brazil who you don't want to be standing in front of if he's got a punch or a kick or a submission coming at you.
No, you do not. It's very, I don't want to say Alvi's the heavy underdog, but I don't think he's the favorite.
No, actually, you know what? Since you mentioned the odds, let's use the odds that our friend Nick Kalikas uses. I will pull them up right now, and let's see what we got. Fighting, UFC, continue. Click the button, here's the board. And right now, Mutanch is a minus 310 favorite.
That's not bad.
No, I mean, Albi's not, he's the dog in the fight, but he's not a severe dog. I guess he's still in the argument.
Now Barbosa and Johnson. You really think Johnson's going to lose this fight, eh?
Well, Barboza is the minus 145 favorite, so the odds makers agree with me.
I wouldn't underestimate Johnson. I might parlay him with my pick here for the heavyweight fight in the main event.
Well, speaking of which, Silva is the minus 320, so are you going with the upset there?
Yeah, I got Mir.
You got Mir. Okay, you're really counting on Mir to take it to the ground and submit him then, because that's about the only way.
Well, yeah, I don't think he's winning a stand-up fight with Silva.
No, he is not.
But I think he can take Silva down, and we've seen what he does to people on the ground. We've seen the x-rays.
I know that. I do. But it's Antonio Silva fighting in Brazil. I just have this feeling that the odds reflect the fact that he's fighting on his home turf.
Speaking of a guy who be jacked up fighting in front of his home crowd, but if Mir wins by early stoppage, I don't think this is gonna go to the distance. I just have that sinking feeling. But if Mir wins and early in there, I always make the joke you need an early escape plan, right? But I think Mir can take him down. But somebody asked me the other day, who's got a bigger skull? Is it Antonio Silva or Tito Ortiz?
Oh, it's definitely Silva. I've stood next to both of them in person, and Silva by a landslide.
Yeah. Now, do you think is it Rogan who's going to do this, or is it John Anik?
I would suspect it's probably going to be John Anik.
Well, that's the show this Sunday at 5 o'clock, so if you're watching it on Fox Sports 1 or TSN, I don't know what regional channel it's on. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 5. I'm really fuzzy on this TSN deal, but I believe it's TSN 5, but I could be wrong. But I do know Fight Network usually has the post-fight press conference, and also you can watch that on... If you have a 360 Xbox Live, I know that. I've seen that on there. I'm not sure about PlayStation. But I think Chromecast might be getting a UFC app too. I've heard rumors about that as well, so. Alright, so that's the show this week. What's on tap for Thursday Night AMP?
I believe we're going to be speaking to independent women's wrestler and cosplay enthusiast Brittany Blake. But she had to postpone it last week due to a scheduling conflict, and coincidentally, I had to postpone it because I was covering the World Series fighting for MMA Mania. So, hopefully we've got all our ducks in a row and everybody's on board for tonight, or tomorrow night, I mean. But, if it doesn't happen, we'll still be talking about WWE Fastlane. So, no shortage of reasons to tune in to Thursday Night AMP. And, hey, I'm gonna do cheap plugs since we're already on the topic of future and past podcasts. I gotta say, Undisputed Wrestling hitting home runs out of the park each and every week on the AngryMarks Podcast Network, because this week They just really ran the table. They not only did the Tuesday show, which everybody knows and expects and is always great. You know, they had 2 great interviews on there. Garrett Bischoff, who you may think is undeservedly part of the wrestling business because of his famous father, but he's actually a really interesting guy and told some great stories and was very humble and down to earth. Then they had the oddball Len Oddity in the second hour. This man is legitimately nuts. So if you want to hear a crazy man talk about being willing to bleed and actually trying to lower his price to see if a match would be offered to him where he didn't have to bleed and nobody would pay it to him, then you got an interview there that you can't miss. And then, of course, Mark Miro, who I had my doubts about because you've heard me expound on my feelings on Mark Miro's appearance on Nancy Grace before. But he turned me around. Undisputed Wrestling got a great interview with him. He was very humble. He was very down to earth. He answered all of their questions, as Jim Cornette would say, with forthrightness and honesty. So Mark Miro wins in my book, and the Undisputed Wrestling Show wins 2 times in a row. And then, of course, my co-host on Thursday nights, Jordan Garber, I can't say enough about him because 2 weeks in a row he's pitched in on the Raw Reaction and co-hosted. 1 week with Big Vic and the other with Tensai. So Jordan Garber, ace in the hole. And, of course, he's also on the SmackDown Rundown with Nikolai. Gotta love the Impact Implosion with Seth Draken and Mike Poulin. Over the Top Radio with Ed in San Antonio, Craig and Cottrell. We got so many great shows.
Crap.
What?
I'm sorry, I just saw this. Our friend Ryan Fedrick just posted this. Memorial Day weekend in Las Vegas, a triple main event.
That's been the rumor for a while now.
Nurmagomedov against Cerrone, Weidman and Belfort, and Jones and Johnson.
Okay, it's official then.
Wow.
They were talking about it, and you said you weren't listening to Observer Radio. Well, if you had been, you would have heard about this because Dave was talking about how they had a triple header in mind, and they didn't know if they wanted to do it because they didn't want to leave all their other shows high and dry with 50 shows in a year. You need main events for all of those shows, and they were worried that if they overloaded Memorial Day weekend, it could be a problem for them trying to book other shows. But apparently they stuck to their guns and booked it.